She opened the door, smiling with relief, only to realize too late that the girl wearing her daughter's face wasn't her daughter at all. Claire Langford was last seen on a Wednesday afternoon, standing under a flickering street lamp at the corner of Ridgeview and 12th. She was waiting for her ride home from school, umbrella in one hand, backpack clutched tightly to her side. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station caught the final glimpse of her, a pixelated silhouette stepping off the sidewalk and out of frame. After that, Claire was gone. Her disappearance shocked the quiet town of Crestwood. It was the kind of place where people didn't lock their doors and still trusted their neighbors to babysit their kids. A place where everyone knew the Langfords, a well-liked, respectable family. Claire had always been the golden child, a straight-A student, piano prodigy, and volunteer at the local animal shelter. Her vanishing shattered that perfect image of suburban safety. Parents held their children tighter. Teenagers were no longer allowed to walk alone. The police launched a search that stretched across counties. Helicopters combed the forests, dogs sniffed through abandoned lots, and volunteers printed missing posters that papered every telephone pole for miles. Still nothing came up. No blood, no phone signal, no tire tracks. Claire had simply evaporated. For Evelyn Langford, the silence was unbearable. She spiraled quickly, sleeping in her daughter's bed, leaving the porch light on every night, and insisting Claire would come back. Her husband, Robert, tried to keep her grounded, but grief wore at their marriage like acid. Eventually he moved out. Evelyn stayed, clinging to her rituals, feeding Claire's cat like she would be home any moment. Over the months, conspiracy theories bloomed. Some said Claire had run away with a secret boyfriend. Others whispered about human traffickers and organ rings. A few even accused Evelyn herself, pointing to her obsessive behavior and breakdowns on live television. But Evelyn didn't care. She just wanted her daughter back. 3 years passed. Life moved on without Claire, but Evelyn didn't. She kept her daughter's room untouched, textbooks open, clothes still folded in drawers, her favorite hoodie draped over the chair like she'd only just left. Evelyn stopped answering calls unless they came from unknown numbers. Every day she checked her email, voicemail, and junk folder. Every night she waited for a knock that never came. Until one day, it did. The knock was soft, hesitant. Evelyn opened the door to a state trooper standing on her porch, hat in hand. His face was solemn, but his voice trembled with excitement. They'd found her, he said. Claire. Alive. She had walked into a diner off Highway 63, barefoot and bruised, asking for help. The waitress said she looked dazed, thin, and confused, but unmistakably the girl from the old missing posters. A couple had driven her to the nearest police station, and once her fingerprints matched, the case exploded open. Evelyn collapsed. The grief she had lived with so long dissolved instantly into a scream, raw, primal joy. Claire was coming home. The reunion was arranged within hours. Claire was being evaluated at a private medical center 2 towns over, kept away from the media. Evelyn drove there in a fog of disbelief, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. She replayed memories on loop. Claire in her Halloween witch costume, Claire crying after her first breakup, Claire practicing Chopin until her fingers cramped. She tried to imagine what she'd look like now, older yes but still her Claire. When she saw her again for the first time, sitting on the hospital bed in oversized clothes, Evelyn dropped to her knees. The girl looked just like her, same wavy brown hair, same hazel eyes flecked with green. Her smile was hesitant, uncertain. She had a scar on her left cheek that Evelyn didn't remember, and her voice was softer than before. But trauma changes people, the doctors explained. The mind protects itself by burying pain. Claire had been through a nightmare. There were gaps in her memory. She wouldn't talk much about where she'd been or what had happened, and that was normal. Evelyn didn't question it. She hugged her daughter and cried like a mother who had finally escaped the long, dark tunnel of hope and hopelessness. But deep inside, under the joy, something unsettled began to stir. The first moment came the next morning. Claire didn't recognize their dog, Max. He barked incessantly, backing away from her like she was a stranger. She shrugged it off, said she didn't like dogs anymore. The second moment came at breakfast. Claire said she hated peanut butter, but Evelyn remembered how she used to sneak spoonfuls of it from the jar. When she brought it up, Claire smiled awkwardly. I guess my taste changed. Still, Evelyn pushed those doubts down. Claire was different now. Of course she was. But the moments kept piling up, small, forgettable things that didn't quite fit. Claire didn't remember where her bedroom light switch was. She flinched when Evelyn played the piano. And when a neighbor stopped by, someone who'd babysat Claire since she was 5, the woman left shaken. That's not Claire, she whispered before walking away. Evelyn laughed it off, but that night she couldn't sleep. She stood outside her daughter's door, listening to her hum a lullaby Evelyn didn't recognize. It was off-key, tuneless, wrong. Just like everything else. And for the first time since Claire's return, Evelyn allowed herself to wonder. What if the girl who came back wasn't her daughter at all? Evelyn had always believed that if Claire ever returned, she would feel it instantly, that some instinct only a mother possessed would flare to life. And when she first embraced the girl at the hospital, something inside her had clicked, something ancient and maternal that told her, "This is mine. This is my child." But as the days passed, that certainty began to shift. The homecoming was quiet. Evelyn didn't want media attention, and the police agreed. They said Claire needed time, privacy, therapy, patience. So she brought her daughter home quietly, wrapping her in the warmth of familiar things. The soft glow of her childhood nightlight, her old books on the shelf, a favorite sweater washed and waiting on her bed. Claire said very little. She smiled when prompted, nodded when spoken to, and often stared out windows for long stretches. Evelyn chalked it up to trauma. Who knew what she had seen, what she had endured? The human mind had its own way of protecting itself, burying unbearable things under layers of silence. Evelyn could accept that. What she couldn't ignore were the things that didn't feel like trauma. They felt like absence. It started with the small, offbeat gaps. One morning, Evelyn made Claire's favorite breakfast, French toast with cinnamon and vanilla, just like she used to love. But Claire barely touched it. When Evelyn asked why, she said she didn't like sweet things anymore. Evelyn smiled, told her that people's tastes changed, but her stomach tightened anyway. Claire used to beg for that breakfast every Sunday morning. Later that week, they went through old photo albums together. Evelyn thought it would help bring back memories. But Claire's reactions were off. She looked at the photos with interest but not emotion. There was no spark of familiarity, no flicker of recognition. When Evelyn pointed to the photo of Claire and her childhood best friend, Maggie, at the beach, Claire hesitated before saying, "Oh, yeah, Maggie." She got the name right, but only after glancing at the handwritten label beneath the picture. Maybe she was just rusty. Maybe time had dulled those corners of her mind. But the unease deepened. Then came the incident with Max. The old golden retriever had always been Claire's shadow, never more than a few feet from her side. But now he growled whenever she came near, tail low, ears flat. Claire stood frozen when he barked at her, her face carefully blank. "Maybe he doesn't remember me," she offered. Evelyn wanted to believe that. But Max had loved Claire with an animal loyalty that went deeper than memory. Dogs knew their people. A few nights later, Evelyn was woken by a sound, soft humming from Claire's room. It was a melody she didn't recognize, eerie and tuneless. The next morning, Evelyn asked about it. Claire looked confused. "I wasn't humming," she said, and quickly changed the subject. The weight of doubt became heavier with each passing day. Claire avoided the piano entirely. Once, when Evelyn gently urged her to play, something she had always adored, Claire said she forgot how. But Claire had once performed complex sonatas from memory. She didn't forget. Not like that. The final push came from the neighbor, Mrs. Dawes, who had known Claire since she was a toddler. She stopped by to drop off a casserole and stayed for tea. When Claire came downstairs and greeted her with a stiff smile and handshake, Mrs. Dawes went pale. She left in a hurry, the dish still in her hands. Hours later, she called Evelyn. "I know grief can make people see what they want to see," she said softly, "but that girl is not your daughter. She looks like her. She speaks like her. But it's not her." Evelyn didn't respond. She simply ended the call and sat in the dark kitchen for hours. She wanted to dismiss it as paranoia. She tried. But doubt had rooted too deeply. So she began to observe, closely, quietly. She tested Claire in small, hidden ways. She moved items in her room to see if Claire would notice. She didn't. She played old home videos on the living room TV, watching Claire's eyes for emotion. Nothing. She asked questions about Claire's childhood, things no one else could know. Sometimes the girl answered right. Other times she faltered, deflecting or laughing awkwardly. Evelyn found herself scrutinizing her every word, every movement, trying to feel that connection again. But all she felt was an uncanny mimicry, too polished, too careful. Like someone acting out a role they'd memorized from watching tapes over and over again. One night, Evelyn tiptoed into Claire's room while she slept. The moonlight cut across her face and Evelyn studied it like it was a painting. It was Claire. The cheekbones, the freckles, the way her lips curled slightly in sleep, it was all right. Too right. Like someone had gone to painful lengths to recreate every detail. A mask made from memory. Evelyn leaned closer and gently pulled down the collar of her daughter's shirt, looking for something specific. A small, faded birthmark just below her left collarbone, the shape of a crooked heart. It wasn't there. She staggered back in horror. Claire stirred slightly but didn't wake. Evelyn stood in the hallway for a long time, heart pounding like a drum. She had spent 3 years longing, aching, praying for this moment. But now that it had come, she could no longer silence the question screaming inside her. Who the hell was sleeping in her daughter's bed? The air in the house had shifted. It was heavier now, pressing in around Evelyn like a thick fog. Every creak in the hallway, every breath from the room down the hall, seemed louder, more deliberate. The girl who claimed to be Claire still moved through the home like she belonged there, but Evelyn couldn't look at her the same way anymore. She kept recalling that smooth patch of skin on her collarbone. No birthmark. No explanation. Just a glaring absence where something real should have been. She knew she was being watched now. The girl had grown colder, more observant. Her eyes no longer wandered in confusion but studied Evelyn's every move with unnerving precision. She didn't ask questions anymore, she waited. And Evelyn had the growing sense that she wasn't the one in control of anything. It was during one of her sleepless nights that Evelyn went back up to the attic. It wasn't a place she visited often. It still smelled of dust and wood rot and forgotten grief. She'd stored Claire's old things up there years ago, the drawings, journals, half-finished crafts from grade school. Most had been packed in boxes and sealed tightly. But now, Evelyn opened each one, searching not just for memory but for proof. She found it in the bottom of a plain cardboard box labeled C 10th grade. Tucked beneath a stack of sketchbooks and piano recital programs was a leather-bound journal Evelyn didn't recognize. The cover was cracked, edges worn. There was no name inside, no date. Just a single phrase written in delicate handwriting on the first page. If you find this, then I'm already gone. Evelyn sat down on the floor and began to read. The entry started off as typical teenage reflections. Complaints about school, cryptic notes about someone named Kay, and fragments of poems Claire had written. But as the pages went on, the tone shifted. The entries became fractured, panicked. Mentions of being watched. Of someone copying her, studying her. Of a girl in the shadows who whispered at night. The final pages were smudged with something, ink, maybe, or tears. The handwriting grew slanted and erratic. She says she wants to wear my face. She says my mother will never know. She watches me sleep. She touches my things when I'm at school. She wants to be me. And I think she's getting closer. Evelyn's blood ran cold. The very last line, scribbled in rushed, frantic loops, was underlined twice. If she comes back instead of me, don't let her in. The journal fell from Evelyn's hands. She stumbled downstairs, stomach churning, mind racing. Every memory from the past week now twisted into something grotesque. The way the girl mimicked Claire's handwriting. The strange lullabies. The hollow way she recited stories that should have been second nature. Evelyn had tried to rationalize it all, to excuse it as trauma. But it wasn't trauma. It was imitation. Perfect imitation. And then came the voice behind her. Come. Soft. So much like Claire's. You weren't supposed to find that. Evelyn turned slowly. The girl stood at the base of the stairs, barefoot in Claire's old pajamas. Her face was blank, but her eyes gleamed. For the first time, Evelyn saw what had always been there, something artificial behind the familiarity. Like a doll sculpted in her daughter's image. Beautiful. Precise. Empty. I didn't want to hurt her, the girl said, voice barely a whisper. But she didn't love me. Not like I loved her. I would have done anything to be her. She just laughed at me. Called me crazy. But I watched her long enough. Studied her long enough. And when the time came, I did what had to be done. Evelyn didn't speak. She couldn't. Her throat had tightened to a thread. The girl stepped closer, one foot gliding silently over the hardwood. I thought you'd be different. I thought you would see me. Love me. Accept me. I made myself perfect. For you. And for a while you did, didn't you? I saw it in your eyes. Evelyn backed up toward the kitchen, heart hammering so loud she could hear it in her ears. But then you started looking too closely, the girl continued, voice colder now. That was your mistake. Evelyn's hand reached behind her, blindly searching the counter. She found the handle of a kitchen knife and gripped it tight. I don't want to hurt you, the girl said, eyes narrowing. I just want to stay. I can be good. I can be your daughter. I am your daughter now. No, Evelyn said finally, her voice barely audible. You're not. The silence that followed stretched into something unbearable. The girl's lips trembled, and for a split second, her eyes flashed with something like heartbreak. Then it was gone, replaced by that hollow calm again. "You should have let it go," she said. What happened next Evelyn would never fully remember, only fragments. The gleam of steel. The crash of glass. A scream that may have been hers or not. The struggle, the weight, the blood. When it was over, the girl lay still on the floor, her face twisted in something between sorrow and rage. Evelyn knelt beside her, shaking. In the end, she hadn't made the choice out of courage or strength. She'd done it out of survival. And now, as the first light of morning crept through the kitchen window, Evelyn stared at the lifeless body wearing her daughter's face. Not her daughter. But for a terrible moment, it had almost been enough to believe.